In early 1959, a group of adventurous students who loved ice skating decided to meet and go camping in the Soviet Union's mountains. They would cover an estimated distance of around 300 kilometers across the Ural Mountains, a region completely isolated from the world, where the harsh and unforgiving wilderness awaited. Their goal was to reach a specific point and then return to their starting point. The group was led by radio engineering student Igor Dyatlov, who was 23 years old at the time. The entire group was highly skilled, but unfortunately, their experience and professionalism couldn't protect them from the brutality of nature, and the trip turned into a terrifying and horrifying incident, part of which remains a mysterious enigma to this day. Let me tell you today about the Dyatlov Pass incident. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive updates on news stories every week. The team consisted of 9 individuals, aside from their leader Dyatlov. On January 8th, the group obtained a permit from the district council for their trip of 10 people to make it official and documented. The goal of the trip was to climb the summit of Mount Otorten, which is located between the Ural Mountains and the Siberian Ice Desert. The mountain itself is only 10 kilometers away from where the disaster would occur. This means that the team never reached their intended destination. The end came in an area called Kholat Syakhl, a name from the language of the indigenous Mansi tribes living in the region, which means dead mountain in Arabic. The name was given because the mountain is so isolated from the world that, had it not been for this incident, no one would have known about it except the few tribes living there. The route chosen by the group was of moderate difficulty, according to climbers' terms, meaning it did not pose significant risks. They could have climbed without the need for ropes, relying only on their hands. The idea was that climbing in February would be the real challenge, as it is the toughest time of the year in terms of weather conditions and the significant drop in temperatures. However, this did not pose a problem for them, as they were well prepared with supplies and suitable clothing. They were also highly confident, and all of them held second-class climbing certificates, with plans to obtain their third-class certificates after returning from this trip. Therefore, this trip was considered their final training opportunity. On the morning of January 25, 1959, the group arrived by train in the city of AFL, from where they were taken by car to the last inhabited area to the north. From there, they began their journey on foot toward the mountain. On January 27th, one of the team members, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back due to sudden fatigue. He suffered from some health issues such as rheumatism and heart problems, and although he was determined to go with them out of stubbornness, the fatigue hit him early on, and he was unable to continue. He decided to return to the city of AFL, leaving only 9 members to continue the journey. Before the group left the last inhabited area, Dyatlov had arranged with the mountaineering club he belonged to send a telegram once they had returned to the isolated city. The telegram was supposed to be sent on February 12th, as scheduled. However, when Yuri decided to turn back, Dyatlov told him that the timing might be slightly delayed due to weather conditions. Therefore, when the 12th arrived and no telegram was received, no one worried. But as days passed, particularly on the 15th and 18th, the concern grew, and with no news about them, the families of the missing students demanded the formation of a rescue team to investigate what had happened. Indeed, a team of volunteers from their association and club, along with a security unit from the army and police, went out in search of them, and helicopters were also deployed to search from the sky. They continued the search until February 26th, when they discovered the terrifying disaster. The camp was found, and everything inside was scattered, with the tents cut into 60 pieces. Mikhail Raven, one of the volunteer students in the campaign, and the first to reach the site of the incident from the rescue team, said the tent was divided into 2 parts and covered with snow, with all their personal belongings left as they were at the camp. Even the shoes were in their original state. Initial investigations indicated that the footprints at the site and the way the tents were cut suggested that those inside the tent had cut it to escape. They either left barefoot, without any shoes, or wore only socks, or even wore only one shoe, as they had no time. Following the tracks, they reached the edge of a nearby forest, about 500 meters away, where they found the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonashenko, both of whom were only wearing underwear. Next to them was a small fire, and the branches above them were broken up to a height of 5 meters. This led investigators to believe that one of the team members had tried to climb the tree, either to seek help from above or to hide from something dangerous below them. In the middle of the distance between the camp and the tree, 3 bodies were found scattered in different positions. Strangely, most of them were not wearing the heavy clothes they were supposed to wear, even though the temperature at the time was between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius below zero. The search for the remaining climbers continued for 2 full months, until on May 4th, they were found 75 meters inside the forest, buried under a 4-meter thick layer of ice. The members of this group were wearing better clothes than the other bodies, but strangely, these clothes belonged to other team members who had died earlier. In light of this, investigative committees were formed to determine what had happened. The bodies showed no obvious injuries that could explain their deaths in that manner. The simple explanation was that they died due to exposure to extreme cold. However, the only person whose condition was suspicious was Rustam Slobodan, whose skull was fractured. Until that moment, the investigation team had no explanation for what happened. But after finding the remaining 4 bodies and examining them, things became even stranger. One of the bodies had its skull completely shattered, and also the bodies of Deboni and Zlotrayov, who were easily identified, had violent fractures in their rib cages. The forensic doctor stated that these fractures could not have occurred without immense pressure. The surprise was that the bodies showed no external wounds or marks on the skin to explain these fractures. Deboni's condition was stranger than Zlotryov's. He had a broken rib cage, his tongue was cut off and thrown nearby, his eyes were not in their sockets, and part of his face was missing. These were very strange injuries that would be difficult to occur naturally. Some attempted to explain these injuries by the position in which the body was found, as it was lying face down near a small water flow in the snow. Although this theory is not accepted, investigators were trying to reach any explanation for what had happened. Of course, the most famous theory proposed at the time was that what happened was the result of an attack by a wild animal. However, the problem with this theory is that no animal could move the bodies and leave the others behind. Additionally, the bodies were buried under 4 meters of snow. As a result, this theory was dismissed. The official report released at the time confirmed that the cause of death was only due to the forces of nature, without considering other possibilities. As a result, the case was closed in May of the same year, and all documents and photos were archived in the government's secret files, remaining hidden for decades. The investigation was reopened in 1999, and after 50 years of the incident, the Dyatlov Foundation was established to honor the team's memory. Led by Yuri Kontsevich, members of the foundation resumed the investigation in an attempt to uncover the cause of death. Naturally, in the face of such a disaster, many theories emerged to explain the horror that occurred, with the number of theories and interpretations growing significantly. Of course, it is impossible to list all these theories in the video, so I will only cover the most famous ones. The first explanation proposed at the time to explain what happened was that the incident was an attack by the Mansi tribes, which we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. It is said that these tribes live near the site of the incident. They consider the mountain to be a sacred place, and no outsider is allowed to cross certain areas. This could explain why the tribe might have attacked a stranger. However, as we mentioned, there were no footprints around the site except for those of the expedition members. Aside from the issue of footprints, there is no logical reason why the tribe would carry out something of such brutality. The official explanation recognized by the Soviet government, and later by the Russian government, states that while they were sleeping in their tents, a sudden avalanche occurred, and tons of snow covered the tents at the camp. When they began to understand what had happened and cut the tents from the inside to escape, they didn't have the opportunity to put on their clothes. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to flee. As for the 4 bodies found far from the camp, they may have been on their way to seek help from the Mansi tribes. The injuries they sustained might have been caused by falling into a low area resembling a valley or a pass, which gave the incident its name, Dyatlov Pass. What supports this theory is that avalanches occur periodically in that region, especially if there is human activity near the snow, which weakens its stability. However, the problem with this theory is that no avalanche was reported on the night the incident occurred. In fact, the area and its surroundings had witnessed over 100 exploratory expeditions before, and none of them reported an avalanche. Additionally, some analyses confirmed that the path of the avalanche, if assumed, would not have covered the tents but would have passed beside them. They also found footprints around the camp, and if there had been an avalanche, those footprints would have been completely covered, and the whole camp would have been buried under snow, as usually happens in such cases. Another important question is, why were the expedition members sleeping in their tents in an area with a temperature 25 degrees below zero without wearing their clothes? In such cases, it is normal for people to wear heavy clothing and cover themselves with additional layers. And of course, the question that remains unanswered is, how could an avalanche have cut off Debony's tongue and thrown it away, and torn out his eyes and Zolotarev's eyes? These explanations did not convince many people, beyond scientific or logical explanations. The most famous theory proposed was that the incident was the result of a military experiment by the Russian army, as the Cold War was still raging at that time. It would be natural for the Soviet government to develop weapons in anticipation of any sudden war, and of course, the Ural Mountains and the isolated Siberian deserts were the best places for the army to conduct such experiments. This opinion spread to the extent that entire books were published about this idea, claiming that the Soviet army, while conducting its military experiments in the area, was surprised by the team members and killed them accidentally. Then the army staged the incident to mislead public opinion. However, some objected to this explanation, stating that there was no justification for the violent injuries found on the bodies, such as the severed tongue and the torn-out eyes. If we assume that these were signs of torture by the army to ensure the team members were not spies for the United States, it would not make sense for the bodies to be left in the snow. They would have been hidden more effectively. Of course, not only scientific and rational explanations emerged among people. No terrifying incident can occur in icy mountains like this without a theory suggesting that the cause was Yeti or the snowman. Yeti is a mythical creature said to live in the icy regions of Asia, with descriptions of it coming from the tribes living in those areas. However, of course, we cannot rely on these descriptions or consider them evidence of its existence. Nonetheless, some tribes say that the Yeti is a huge creature, similar to an ape, about 3 meters tall. If it stood in any room, its feet would reach the ground and its head would touch the ceiling, and it walks upright like humans. This theory assumes that the team stumbled upon the Yeti's domain and then was attacked by it or one of its kind, leading to their deaths. However, regardless of the illogical nature of this theory, as mentioned earlier, there were no footprints of any creature other than those of the expedition members. The final theory we present today, which attempts to explain what happened, is that the incident was the result of an encounter with extraterrestrial beings, specifically beings of the fourth kind, the terrifying type often mentioned in alien abduction stories. According to this theory, reports mentioned the appearance of orange glowing circles in the sky over the area where the incident occurred on the night of the incident and the night before it. Additionally, some of the missing members of the expedition appear to have been taken for testing. Witnesses from local tribes and members of other ski teams, who were 50 kilometers south of the incident site, reported seeing the same lights. Even some residents of the city of Ivdel, from where the expedition originated, said these strange orange lights continued to appear in the sky from February until the end of March. The strangest thing is that one of the points mentioned in the investigation was that some of the bodies contained traces of radiation. Riven Kiddit, the police officer who was leading the investigation at the time of the incident, said that he and his team saw these lights in the sky during the investigation. However, they received orders from higher authorities not to speak about the matter again. Therefore, they did not mention it in the investigation, nor did they tell any of the journalists covering the event. They kept quiet about it until 1990, when it was confessed in a published article. The most bizarre thing is that the investigation into the incident was reopened in 2020, when the official spokesperson for the Russian government appeared in a press conference with a folder containing about 400 pages. He said it included all the details of the incident. He added that there were no criminal suspicions, and that what happened was the result of a natural phenomenon, whatever it may have been, whether it was an avalanche, a tornado, or something else. He completely ignored all the witnesses and stories that had been told previously, but most people didn't believe this statement and continued to believe that what happened was something else. Despite this, the matter was officially closed that day, and to this day, no one knows the real explanation of what happened in Dyatlov Pass, Or maybe the Russian government knows the truth but is hiding it. And so we have reached the end of the story. I look forward to your opinions. And if you have a story you would like us to tell, write it in the comments. For those who want to hear this story on Spotify or dive deeper into the details, you can get the full ebook, which contains additional events and exclusive insights not covered in this video. You'll find all the links in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more gripping stories. Thank you for your support, and see you soon in a new tale.